Last Sunday, I was in Chicago, sitting on a porch high above the city with my dear friend Laura, who you will meet if you're at my ordination because she'll be preaching. We were looking down at the river below us. We were listening to the laughter and the people that were on the tour boats. It was a gorgeous day. We were rejoicing. Our time together, the beautiful city, the day, and we were lamenting. Because below us, there were so many people who were fearful, who were hiding, who were being brutally gathered up. Lamenting and rejoicing. I was working on what I would say today, and this phrase, which I found in Eugene Peterson's introduction to the book of Jeremiah, wouldn't let me go. Troubles require attention. There have been and will always be troubles, but we live in a time right now when the troubles seem so overwhelming. We lament, and we all, when we have enough energy, are asking, what do we do? What do we do as individuals? What do we do as church? What do we do as a community? I think there's some clues, maybe even some clear instructions about what to do with troubles that require our attention in our readings today. Jeremiah knew about troubles. He was born over 2,500 years ago in the middle of decades of constant war between the Assyrian, Babylonian, and Egyptian empires. At the age of 23, he was called by God to be a prophet. And in the midst of that constant, violent turmoil, he pleaded with the people of Judah to return to the ways of Yahweh so the ongoing cycle of violence and destruction would stop. They didn't, and it didn't. It actually got worse. The temple where they knew God actually lived, God's home, was destroyed. And everyone who lived in Jerusalem was exiled to Babylon, deported in modern terms. There's no wonder that with this many troubles, Jeremiah is known as the weeping prophet. The gospel reading today also describes profoundly deep troubles. The story begins with Jesus trying to enter a village. He encounters 10 people with leprosy, which in those times was a term used to describe any kind of significant skin disease. It included the leprosy I learned about in medical school, but it also included things like eczema and psoriasis and even ringworm. It's really hard for us to grasp that 2,000 years ago, skin diseases were not seen as disease. They were a mark on the person, a sign of uncleanliness, proof that they had sinned and were being punished by God. Anyone with leprosy was so unclean that they were required to keep a distance of 100 paces from everyone else, which is about 400 feet. So think about that for a minute. A football field is 300 feet long. These 10 people and all the others around them with skin diseases were required to maintain a distance of more than a football field from any other human being. They see Jesus approach. We can assume that they've heard stories about his miracles and his healing because from 400 feet away, they yell, and they had to yell, it was that far, "Master, have mercy on us. Rabbi, have mercy on us." Jesus doesn't touch them. He can't. From 400 feet away, he yells back, "Go show yourself to the priest." With those words, he's telling them they will be healed of their leprosy. He's letting them know that the priest will certify that their skin is without blemish, that they're no longer unclean. He's letting them know that they will be healed. They're going to be able to hug their family and their friends, things that hasn't happened in years. They're no longer going to be marginalized. They believe, They obey, and they start walking. They start looking for the priest that Jesus told them to find. But at some point in that journey to find that priest, those priests, each of them realized the miracle had actually happened. Their skin was now clear. They had been healed. Most sermons on this text concentrate on the next part of the story, because one of the 10 turns back, retraces his steps, finds Jesus, and falls to his feet in this immense gratitude. It's particularly important that he's a Samaritan, because that means he was doubly marginalized in Jewish society. There's a point made, right? What about the other 9? Now, don't get me wrong, being grateful to God is a huge part of today's lesson, but I wonder if in blaming the other 9 for not being grateful enough, we lose some of what this story is trying to tell us. Because I don't have any doubt, those other 9 were grateful too. In pondering who might be more grateful, I think we miss something important, because all 10 of the lepers paid attention to their troubles. They sought healing. They asked Jesus to have mercy on them. And when he assured them of that mercy and gave them instructions, they believed, they obeyed, and they started walking. Attention is defined as the concentration of awareness, the focus on something to the exclusion of everything else. The word comes from ad, which means toward, and tendere, which means to stretch. To stretch towards something with so much intention that you can't see or perceive anything else. It's no wonder that the poet Mary Oliver says, attention is the beginning of devotion. Our text today teaches us that it's this kind of attention we need to give to the troubles around us. An attention so intense that it becomes the beginning of devotion. And our texts tell us what to do next, too. The book of Jeremiah is 29 chapters long. The first 26 describe the horrors he witnessed and directly experienced. They are 26 chapters of unrelenting lamentation. The final 3 chapters, including our text for today, are very different. The theologian Carol Newsom says these final 3 chapters gather up the themes of destruction and death and reverse them to proclaim healing and new life. Imagine for a moment that you're one of the deported Judeans that Jeremiah is talking to in our text today. You're in exile in the country that killed your friends and family. They not only destroyed your home, they destroyed the temple, God's home. And what does Jeremiah tell them to do? How are they to respond to these soul-crushing troubles? Build houses, plant gardens, get married and have children. And then this one, essentially love your enemies. Seek the welfare of the city where I have sent you into exile and pray to the Lord on its behalf. In the gospel reading today, Jesus knows the 10 lepers have been separated from their lives, have been exiled to the margins. And what does Jesus tell them to do? He tells them to walk. Get on the path, skin lesions and all, knowing they will be healed. He tells them, go find the priest to make it official, but know deeply that God has healing and resurrection at the end of this journey. I think Carol Newsom got it right. I think the message in both our texts today is this: gather up the destruction and death. Pay attention to it. Don't deny it. But don't let it transform you either. Lament the troubles that require attention, but then do what is required to reverse them, to reverse the death and destruction in any way you can. Plant gardens, build houses, And when you are told you will be made whole, believe, obey, rejoice, and then start walking. Amen.